We in Santa Monica have long and strongly supported the Expo Light Rail line. And that makes it particularly galling to us to have been so caught by surprise by the proposal for the Verizon site. And for members of the public who don't remember what that timeline was, none of us knew about that until the draft environmental impact report was released in February. We only found out about it when we read through to the back of the book. And interestingly, all the diagrams that showed possible locations were complete rectangles of aerial maps, except for this one in which the residential neighborhood had somehow been excised from the diagram, so that it wasn't immediately apparent that this was adjacent to a residential neighborhood. And I won't speak for anybody else, but I know that when I realized what that was and where that was, I was upset and offended and felt very defensive of the Pico neighborhood. For a long time, I've regretted the part of Santa Monica's history where the Pico neighborhood was split in two by the freeway. And that's really been cemented in my mind by recently having seen a documentary film called 90404 Changing about the history of that neighborhood. I don't know if my colleagues on the council have all seen that film. I would recommend it highly. Because the damage of putting that freeway through didn't just happen in 1966, it continues to happen. It is a history. It is something that has affected that neighborhood and the people of that neighborhood and the children of the people of that neighborhood and will affect their children to come. So it is really difficult for me to accept letting this maintenance yard further split that neighborhood on my watch on city council. And so we're discussing this and we're trying to protect residents, but we don't get to make the decision. It isn't going to be up to us. Now, we get to advise, but you know, one of the members of the public said she was sorry to hear that I'd given up on the idea of undergrounding the maintenance yard under Bergamot. I didn't give up on that. I was simply told that ain't going to happen. There are lots of things we're being told ain't going to happen, and some things we're being told are going to have to happen. Now, if things we don't like are going to have to happen, then it's going to be our responsibility to have them happen in a way that engages the residents affected by what happens, and where we as a council get to intelligently evaluate those impacts and how they might be mitigated. So I'm hoping there's somebody here from the Expo Authority tonight who'd be willing to go through with me point by point the identified impacts on the Pico neighborhood and commit to some kind of mitigation, or at least to say, look, we'll come back to you in 30 days or whatever and tell you exactly how we'll mitigate these point by point, so that we as a council can then make a recommendation based on the real end result impacts to the neighborhood. Not what people are afraid of, perhaps rightfully so, not on some golden ideal of, well, we won't do anything that hurts anybody, and then 5 years from now we find out what's really going on. Let's try and get some meeting of the minds here where we're being responsible and you're being responsive, and the neighborhood feels correctly that they have been respected. Because I think there's a feeling of disrespect here that really is troubling. So right now we're in discussion. I don't know whether the council wants to allow me to ask some questions of the Expo Authority as part of that discussion, whether that's appropriate, whether that's possible, whether the Expo Authority is willing to engage in that kind of a dialogue. But you know, for my opening remarks, that's where I'd like to see us go tonight, so that we're acting in good faith with full information.